Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining my presentation. My name is Amanda Ensrud, Mandy, and I'm a graduate student at South Dakota State University, getting my Master of Science in Wildlife. In particular, I study the incredible bighorn sheep, which I will get into a lot more later. To start off with, I'm just going to tell you a few basic things about myself. I'm from Sacramento, California, but I moved to South Dakota in 2018. My favorite animal is a bighorn sheep. In my free time, I like to hike and track animals by scat and tracks. If you haven't tried it, I highly encourage you to try it yourself. My favorite time to do it is when there is snow on the ground, kind of like on the left side of my slide there. So my love for animals started at a very young age. The right photo is of me at about 3 or 4, standing on my stroller just to get a better look at a polar bear. Do not try that at home, folks. Although I didn't hunt as a child, most of my family did. The middle photo is me as a young girl at deer camp with my family outside of Lassen National Park, California. Even though I didn't hunt, I love to explore the area, enjoy the great outdoors with my family. I was a Girl Scout all the way through high school from kindergarten. This, I believe, created a large foundation as to who I am as a person today. It taught me to be a leader and to always want to learn new things. I actually still volunteer with a local Girl Scout troop to help other girls have the same experience as I did. As I previously said, I didn't hunt as a child, even though my dad was a great hunter and even a professional bass fisherman at one point in his life. I started hunting and fishing only about 5 years ago. Hunting and fishing are the backbone of conservation, and regardless of your age or gender, it's always a good time to learn about hunting and fishing or simply get out and enjoy the great outdoors. If you're interested in more information on your local Hunt Safe program or resources, contact your local wildlife agency. I got a Bachelor of Science in Zoology and a minor in Wildlife from Humboldt State University in Northern California. And this was quite a few years after I graduated high school, as I started out as a theater major, oddly enough, and then worked my way to finding out that I thought that working with animals is where I wanted to go. And if you haven't been to this area of Northern California and Humboldt County, I highly encourage you to do it. This has been one of the most beautiful places I've had the opportunity to live in. The school itself backs up to a beautiful redwood forest. And I even had classes that met in the forest and provided for an incredible learning experience. The school is also really close to some of the most beautiful Pacific coastline that also provided a lot of cool learning experiences that I'll later go into. It was while I was getting my degree here that I realized how important it is to volunteer in different fields, to learn a little bit more about yourself and what you'd like to do with your career path. I first volunteered with a graduate student who was doing research on sea stars. We would collect sea stars, put a safe and non-permanent dye on them, set them free, and did surveys to see how many of them we caught again. This is an example of a mark recapture study that helps researchers estimate how big a population is without actually having to count every individual. This work was super interesting to do, but made me realize that maybe working with invertebrates like sea stars and working in tide pools wasn't entirely for me. So on to the next opportunity. Through a class at school, I got the opportunity to be a part of the Marine Mammal Education and Research Program, also called MERP, which is kind of fun. In this program, we surveyed beaches for dead marine mammals and recorded their location and cause of death if possible. Before you say ew, try to think about all the cool things you can learn from dead marine mammals. Did someone illegally kill it? Was there a lack of food available for the animal? A rare weather event that happened? Lots of possible reasons as to why an animal might have died. For example, I got the incredible opportunity to respond to the beaching of this 78-foot blue whale. Blue whales are the largest mammal in the world, and to witness this was once in a lifetime. We aided in taking it apart so the bones could be displayed in a museum because it's very rare to find a blue whale. And yes, this was gross, but it was also an incredible learning experience, and it got published in the Smithsonian Magazine, which in my opinion was very cool. I volunteered with them for a few years and ultimately realized maybe marine mammals just weren't for me, or marine, life in general, which was okay. So on to the next. For a short time, I was able to volunteer with a few grad students that were getting their master's degree working with Roosevelt elk. I had the opportunity to help capture a baby elk that is pictured on the right, learn radio telemetry to monitor the female, or rather cow elk, pictured in the middle, and conduct surveys looking for elk scat to analyze DNA to hopefully estimate population size. Here I found out that I loved working with terrestrial mammals, or rather, mammals that lived on land. I then applied for the Natural Resource Volunteer Program with California Department of Fish and Wildlife. I interviewed and even attended a 2-week training just to learn the ins and outs of different aspects of the agency. This was a great opportunity because it made me realize I wanted to work in wildlife management with a state or federal agency, which I still strive to do. While volunteering with this program, I got the opportunity to help run the Problem Wildlife phone line, where I answered questions and concerns from the public about animals in the area. This required me to know up-to-date laws and regulations, as well as how to communicate with the public properly and different people in the agency. I got a lot of black bear versus trash calls, as pictured there on the slide, but there were also a lot of mountain lion calls, skunk, raccoon, and even bird calls. I volunteered with this agency until I finished up with my bachelor's degree. So why is volunteer work so important? Volunteer work is important to put on your resume. Put it all on there. Jobs expect you to have experience, sometimes even entry-level jobs. But having volunteer experience is super helpful for that. It also helped me find out what I liked best. Like I said, volunteering with multiple different organizations helps me find out what I like to do best. And that's okay. It's okay to realize something isn't for you, because that may lead you to something that is. It's also important because networking. The wildlife field is very small. Although it may seem like it's big, it isn't always. So meeting new people in the field and making a great impression is always a great thing. And it can sometimes be fun. When I was anxiously looking for jobs as I was finishing my bachelor's degree, I looked everywhere and tried not to be picky, even though I knew that I wanted to be working with large mammals. I found an awesome paid internship working with big game, but it was in South Dakota. I hate saying that, but a girl from California that had never been to the state of South Dakota, I had some concerns. Besides that, though, I applied, interviewed, got the job, and packed up my car and cat and moved to South Dakota. The takeaway from that is don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and move to new places. I worked with South Dakota Game Fish and Parks and got a ton of hands-on experience with animals such as bighorn sheep, white-tailed deer, mule deer, and bobcats. I also got the opportunity to be a part of a bighorn sheep capture in Badlands National Park. And even though it was -12 most of the day, remember, a newly South Dakota resident from California, it was an incredible experience. Also, as part of that job, I got to do a variety of wildlife surveys. These were done to help estimate how big their population was, or rather how many there were. I did surveys on bighorn sheep, mountain goats, Rocky Mountain elk, white-tailed deer, and mule deer, wild turkey, mourning doves, sage grouse, sharp-tailed grouse, and greater prairie chickens. Even though I found that myself to be quite the mammals person, I found I really liked working with grouse, which was kind of fun. While working my internship, I was able to take a lot of classes with the Outdoor Campus West, part of South Dakota Game Fish and Parks. Here I took classes on ice fishing, kayak fishing, game cooking, rifle shooting, shotgun shooting, handgun shooting, trapping techniques, predator calling, and many others that I'm sure I'm forgetting. Here I met an incredible mentor that took my lack of experience with hunting and fishing and created an opportunity to teach me. I then began helping him with classes when I became a graduate student and even became a hunt safe instructor. These opportunities and mentorship I will always be grateful for. January of 2019, I started graduate school to get my master's degree in wildlife through South Dakota State University. Here, I got to work in the beautiful Black Hills National Forest in western South Dakota and got to work with my favorite animal, the bighorn sheep. This map shows in red how bighorn sheep range in North America has changed over time. This is due to multiple reasons, including overhunting in the earlier years, habitat loss, and disease. Bighorn sheep in the United States have decreased from about 1.5 or 2 million sheep in the early 1800s to under 40,000 sheep in the United States by the end of the 19th century. My research looks at the role pneumonia plays in decreasing bighorn sheep herds. Pneumonia is a bad infection of the lungs and is very contagious. Pneumonia can cause die-offs that can kill as much as 98% of the herd. So why are sheep getting pneumonia, you might ask? Well, it is thought that the earliest recorded die-off was in the mid-1800s, and it coincided with the introduction of domestic sheep and goats. My project is particularly looking at the role of bacteria that domestic sheep and goats commonly carry and see how that plays into pneumonia die-offs in bighorn sheep. It starts by a bighorn sheep coming in contact with an infected domestic sheep or goat, as showed by this graphic. The bighorn sheep then becomes infected and returns to the rest of the herd and spreads it to the rest of them. And while a lot of individuals die of the infection, some still live and will continually spread it to the individuals in the herd that haven't come in contact with the bacteria. The newborn lambs become the most at risk. This makes it hard for the lamb to survive and hard for the herd to grow. It's important to monitor domestic sheep and goat herds for infection within bighorn sheep habitat to avoid these sort of interactions. We take samples from bighorn sheep to help us see who is still infected with the bacteria. To do this, we take nasal swabs. This helps detect if a bighorn sheep is currently infected, and we also draw blood. The blood will tell us if they have immunity to the bacteria. Immunity is more or less if a sheep has antibodies, or what I like to call little fighters in their immune system that fight against the bacterial infection. During the late spring, we also heavily monitor the ewes, female sheep, to see if they have given birth to a lamb. The goal is to catch and collar the lamb to monitor its survival, but you usually have to capture the lambs while they're less than 12 hours old. I know, very young and very specific, or they're really fast and can maneuver cliffs much better than I can. And I've been tested on that on numerous occasions. When we capture a lamb, we put a collar on them to monitor them daily. Depending on if the lamb is alive, the collar will make a different sound. If the collar puts off a sound that they may be dead, we hike in and investigate. When we collar them, we also weigh them and figure out if they're male or female. After this, we set them free to go back to their mother. And there's a few pictures there. They're very cute. So here's just a few videos here. So this one, and they have no sound, so nothing is going wrong. Here are some videos I've collected of lambs over the years. So the first video is just lambs playing around on the cliffside I took through a spotting scope. So as you see, it kind of goes in and out. It's remarkable to see how agile they are at a young age and them just interacting. And the second video here is of a lamb I caught and set free. It's an example of a very calm lamb after release. Stop that one. Okay, and then here, the third video that I'll play is an example of a not so very calm lamb after release. There it goes. But when looking at that video, again, it's really remarkable to see how agile these lambs are, and they're not even 12 hours old. So the main goal of my project is to end up with a healthy, disease-free herd that has lots of lambs recruited into the herd each year and has the potential to grow. When we capture adult sheep, we either capture them by dart gun or by helicopter. Here are pictures from a helicopter capture I had for my project. On the left, you can see the helicopter carrying 2 rams, and the right is just zoomed in. The helicopter crews do amazing work. They track down all kinds of animals all over the world and use a net gun to capture them, and then get out and either take samples there or attach them to the bottom of the helicopter, like you see here, and bring them back to other people to work them up. Even when I was getting my master's degree, I still took advantage of volunteer opportunities that were presented to me. Always keep your mind open to volunteer opportunities because you never know what you'll get the opportunity to do. So this is one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. And yes, I took these photos, but with a very large scale zoom. Here I accompanied biologists while they used hounds to track down mountain lions. And once they were treed, they were darted. But this dart fell directly out and contained valuable information, DNA. This helps biologists estimate how many mountain lions there are in the area without having to capture all of them, as I had previously done with sea stars. Well, kinda. But the recapture method is when hunters check in a mountain lion they've harvested, a small amount of DNA is also collected and compared to the darted samples. This was also a very cool thing I did. I got the opportunity to help out with helicopter Rocky Mountain elk surveys. So this video, again, does not have sound, shows one of the herds that we were counting. And we weren't trying to distinguish different sexes, but rather just how many individuals were there. I'll briefly talk about the difference between undergraduate schooling and graduate schooling. So undergraduate schooling is where you go after high school, or sometimes depending on what your journey is, and you can get a bachelor's degree there. Here you'll take a lot of different classes that are required for your specific major. I enjoyed this aspect because it helped me determine what I liked and what I didn't like. While it's important to do well in all classes, I think we can all agree that we like some classes a little bit more than others. This is important to think about, though, when you're thinking about what you would want to do for a career. If you want to work with wildlife, I would encourage you to get a bachelor's degree in wildlife or a closely related field like zoology or ecology. For graduate school, you can, and that's after you get a bachelor's degree, you can either do a master's or a PhD. Usually a master's comes before a PhD, while others are able to go directly into a PhD. They're either thesis-based or non-thesis-based. This just means that you have to write a thesis at the end, which is a very large paper that summarizes your research, which has been taking up all of my time at the moment. The classes you take are a lot more specialized, which I really enjoyed. I found that I was taking classes that were more interesting to me and gave me training that I would actually use in a future job. Graduate school may also include field work, which in my opinion is the best part. My field work was the first year and a half of graduate school and when I was out working in the field studying the sheep. One of the best part is that usually, or that you should be in this field, be paid to get the research done, which is pretty cool. So why go to graduate school? While some are able to get incredible jobs in this field without it, some require it. For me, I wanted to be a wildlife biologist with the state or federal government where they usually require them, or it is very competitive where having a master's degree may make you stand out. It's all up to what you want to do and, really depending on the job because they're all so very different. If you think that you might want to go to graduate school someday, just here's a few tips. Figure out what specialization you'd most likely be interested in. And this could be applicable to even, just going to college in general right after high school. What classes did you love in school? Is there an animal that you really enjoyed working with? Is there, anyways. Huge disclaimer to all of this though, you might not find your dream project, but knowing that you don't like to work with birds, that's just an example, no offense to the bird people out there, would be a good thing to know before you sign on to a 3-year master's project. Always network. Look into schools you would want to go to, specific professors that do research that you're interested in, and reach out. Email them, send them your resume. Do you love Alaska? Look into schools in Alaska that have programs that you would be interested in and professors that do research you enjoy. The same goes for animals. Love bighorn sheep? Look and see who does bighorn sheep research and what school they're affiliated with. It's always good to network. Check the requirements of the program or school you're interested in. So this would be the same for just going to college right after high school. Do they require you to take the GRE? This is just like the SAT, if you're familiar with that, but for graduate school. Do they have GPA requirements? Most universities have this information available to you online. And what I can't stress enough is update your resume as you go. You remember more of what you've been doing in the moment than what you would remember years from now. This makes it it makes it ready to send off for jobs or for school whenever you need it. I also want to stress, even if you did something you didn't think would be useful on a resume, like using a chainsaw or ability to ride an ATV, put it on your resume, because it just takes one person to look at it and want that qualification. So regardless of what you want to do or what you feel passionate about, if you feel like working in the field of wildlife is something that interests you, I encourage you, because there are so many options. You can be a biologist working with plants or animals, and even that goes further to mammals, birds, fish, insects, and more. You could be a game warden. You can work in wildlife forensics, trapper, a hunting and fishing guide, outdoor education teacher. You could even be one of those helicopter pilots and crews that capture wildlife all over the world. I've seen some crazy videos of them doing it with giraffes, kind of cool. You could be a researcher or a professor at a university, environmental lawyer, nonprofit founder, wildlife, nature photographer, filmmaker, author. The list really goes on. You know, regardless of what you want to do, or even if you find out that doing wildlife stuff just isn't for you, these are just the tips that I've picked up along the way and things to remember. Don't be discouraged. It is so easy to do, and just try your hardest to be present and just keep fighting along. Life presents a lot of challenges, so persevere through it. Find a mentor to help guide you and friends to keep you smiling, very important. And everyone's journey looks a little different, so don't compare to your friends, classmates, just do you. And thank you so much for watching. It's been a privilege presenting to you, and I hope you all have an amazing day. Thank you.